Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in today. Today I want to talk a little bit about this photograph that I did recently. So this is the photograph that I kind of stole for myself, actually. I did a similar photo to this a while back using the Punisher. So this time in this one, though, I used a couple different figures, Mezcos, the G.I. Joe Snake Eyes, which, to be honest, I was on the fence about this figure. I don't know. I still don't love him. I mean, it's nothing against Mezco. They did a good job on it. I don't know. I'm still not 100% sure that I should have gotten him. And so, yeah, I kind of try to throw this one in the mix just because I don't know. I don't love it. So I figured why not throw it in there with Roadblock, because my Mezco Roadblock is the other one. And it's funny, as a kid, I had a couple of Roadblock figures as a kid, and he was by no means a favorite of mine. But this Mezco one is really freaking nice, man. Like, I think this is one of the nicest looking Mezcos that I own today. It's an amazing Mezco. As a matter of fact, Mezco, this is a great example of, I would love to see an updated Punisher, something similar to this, the tactical pants and knee pads and thigh holsters and all that. This body would be perfect. Sleeveless shirt, removable vest, whatever the hell else they want to throw in there would be amazing. So fingers crossed. I keep hoping for one of those. I was kind of curious how, if I did this similar photograph and setup, how it would turn out in comparison to the old one. And I don't know necessarily that I thought it was better than the other one, and maybe I'm partially being biased because of the characters. Punisher is one of my favorite comic book characters. I don't know, it had a very different feel to me. I would say I probably liked about the same, but I don't know if I really liked it better per se. But it is interesting. I like to go back sometimes and look at my older work just to see how much I've grown. And it's please don't go back and look at my early works. It's kind of cringy. No, I'm just kidding. But no, seriously though, it is a big difference when I look at it. And I think it's easy for people who are starting out in this, or who maybe don't really do it very consistently. It's easy to get discouraged, right? Because you look at there's a lot of great toy photographers out there, and you look at their work and you let that discourage you. But my advice is, don't let that discourage you. Let that encourage you, and let that motivate you. I was there once as well. I remember looking at people's stuff thinking, like, man, I want to be that good one day. And then, sometimes I would look at it and think, man, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that. But it also allowed me to push myself and say, you know what? No. If someone else can do it, so can I. And so it helped to motivate me and help me to push myself. And I have a little bit of a competitive spirit in me as well. And I'm sure that helps out. But yeah, my advice to those of you, like I said, who are starting out in this is, don't let it discourage you. Let that encourage you, learn from others, and stick with it, because honestly, the biggest thing that's going to help you grow over time is just consistency. If you shoot fairly regularly and you keep doing that, just by default, you're going to learn just by doing it over and over again. And experiment too. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't get into a rut where you're just shooting the exact same thing over and over again, or the same setups. Don't be afraid to experiment with your lighting and whatnot. But yeah, just keep going. That's going to absolutely get you to a better place. And if you're not there already, you'll certainly be able to get there eventually, to where you'll look back at your stuff and say the same thing. I look at my early stuff now, and like I said, it sucks. And I'm sure at the time I thought it was decent, but now looking back on it, I know it's not. But it's also awesome to see how much I've grown, and just by sticking with it. And like I said, learn from others, whether it's just studying their work or watching their videos and experimenting, like I said, yourself. You will get there. So don't let it discourage you, is my biggest piece of advice. All right, so in this photograph, I used my explosion effects. Okay, so this is one of my explosion effects, and as you can see, it's nothing impressive to look at. It looks very different, and so very different from when it's in my photographs. So the basics of this thing, I have this wire here, which is a little bit thicker wire, which kind of makes a frame that goes all the way up into the effect. And then I have this thinner wire you can see here barely. And this also goes all the way up, kind of sporadically like this, just to give the polyfill something to hold on to. And this is polyfill that you can get. I got this from Walmart. Well, okay, admittedly, I probably stole this from the wife, who she got from Walmart. Some wire, like I said, and some spray paint. You know, I put a decent amount of spray paint up here on the higher part, and even a little bit down towards the bottom. But just adding a light in and of itself, just adding some color, I mean, makes already that makes a hell of a difference, right? It starts to actually look somewhat like an explosion. And so the other key to making that effect look good is to make sure that it is out of focus enough. You don't want to be able to see the individual strands of the polyfill. And I mean, it's something to experiment with. Just if you set your aperture to a certain setting, like in this one, I believe I shot this actually at a 5.6. So you can experiment with that. Set it at a low aperture and just kind of start moving the effect away from your character, right? And you'll see it gets blurrier and blurrier, obviously, the further away it gets, until it looks right to you, right? Because there's also times where I've had it too far back and it looks too blurry. It doesn't look good. It needs just a little bit of detail so you can kind of see the difference in the blacks and the colors, but not so far that it kind of is muddy and blends together. And like I said, not too close or too in focus that you can start to see the polyfill or any gaps where maybe there's wires and that kind of stuff. So the focus is probably the most important part of it. The orange light is also very important. If you don't have an RGB light, I would definitely recommend having at least one. In all honesty, I don't really use my colored lights for much other than those explosions, but from time to time it's nice to have, for whatever. So I would definitely recommend having one of those. Also, guys, I want to take a quick second to say, if you haven't subscribed, I would appreciate a subscribe. I would also appreciate a like. And if you do have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them. I will get back to you. And I always love any advice anyone has, any ideas or something that you want to see maybe for me. I'm not necessarily married to the idea of just doing these behind the scenes. I don't mind doing individual videos on, whatever. If there's anything information-wise you think that I have that I might be able to help you with, leave it in the comment and I will certainly consider it or see if it's something that I can do. Also, want to give a quick shout out to my boy Nick for pointing out something that I've obviously been aware of this as well, but it is nice to hear this. This is constructive feedback. He basically asked me if I was high or if I'm always this mellow. And no, I'm not high, and I don't smoke, so no, I'm not high when I do these videos. And I am pretty mellow in general, but I also know that being on this side of the camera is, for me anyways, is very awkward. And I think for most people, if you're not used to being on this side of the camera, it's a very weird and uncomfortable experience. But, over time, it gets a little bit more comfortable each time, so I'm mindful of that. I try to be aware of that. I'm trying to not sound so monotone and boring, so I'm working on that. Hopefully that'll get better as time goes. I feel like it has progressed already a little bit, so bear with me, guys. Hopefully that will get better. And shout out to my boy Nick. Appreciate it, buddy. Okay, so my settings for this photograph, I used my 85mm lens. My ISO was at 400. My aperture was an f5.6, and my shutter speed was at half a second. All right, so anyways, let's jump on over to the behind the scenes.